This week, we have one of my all-time dream guests on the podcast. She has literally done it all in the industry. She has been in 5 Broadway shows. She has a Tony Award and a Lucille Lortel Award. She's recently been appearing on all of your favorite TV shows, such as God Friended Me, The Good Doctor, United States of Al, Grey's Anatomy, Modern Family. I mean, you name it. It is my pleasure to welcome to the Take a Bow podcast, Rachel Bay Jones. Hi, Rachel.
Hi, my friend.
Oh my God. I'm so excited. I know this has been a long time, wish of mine. Like when I first started it, I was like, who are my dream guests? And it was like literally that entire original cast of Dear Evan Hansen. But you, of course, were up there after being my mom and Pippin and all the fun things. So this is going to be so much fun.
I'm so happy.
Yes. So the way I usually, we'll get to all of that in a second, but the way that I usually like to start my episodes is just asking, everybody who comes on here, what inspired them to want to perform and tell stories and just make people feel something? Like, how did you get started in the industry?
My parents were actors. And so, and they had quit when my mother got pregnant with me. They were actors in New York. And they had health food stores. And so my whole life, they talked about acting and they talked about show business. And they were so passionate about it. And they were very serious actors. They met at the Shakespeare Festival in Stratford, and they're, and they're amazing. But I'd never seen them actually do anything. And then they went back to doing some regional theater productions when I was about 12 years old, 11 or 12. And I was blown away suddenly seeing these people who I thought I knew in one way in a totally different way. So it was very crazy. And but I was really shy, Eli. I was not like a kid performer in any way, and I didn't want to be. I never had any aspirations for that. But I saw that my mother was auditioning for a play, and she had the play out on the kitchen counter, and I was leafing through it, and I saw that there was a part for a 13-year-old girl, and I was like, ooh, I can play that part. And she got very excited and prepped me for this audition for this little comedy. And at the local dinner theater. And I ended up getting a part, and she didn't. So I didn't get my mom. It was a little rough for a while, but
that's so awkward.
It was totally awkward. Drive me to rehearsal. So
right.
So it was really,
You were the star of the family now. That's when it all began.
Yeah.
So you were kind of like a child performer in a way.
I really was, actually. It just wasn't in like a big market like New York or whatever, but I did professional shows. Regional theater, So
are you happy that you started at a young age, or I'll let you I'll let you
well, you and I should have a lot to talk about.
Yeah.
Because it's sort of, it was one of those things where I think as a kid, you're totally swept up in all of the wonderful things about it. And I guess all of the crappy things too. You get taken with the attention, and for me, so many wonderful things. I was so shy that I really kept doing it. It felt like a real opportunity for me to connect with people in a way that I didn't understand how to do in my life and socially. I was too shy, I was too awkward, or whatever those feelings that we all have. I don't know how much it outwardly expressed, but for me, it was painful.
Right.
And so I could go on stage and then communicate with hundreds of people at once, and but I think as a kid, you're at least for me, I wasn't really given an opportunity to really to explore other careers, to know what else I might want to do. I always thought I wanted to be a writer. I wanted to be a scientist. Actor never crossed my mind.
Oh my God.
But suddenly here I was making money doing this thing, and it just continues until you're finally for me, I was in my early 20s and I was like, what the hell did I do?
Yeah.
Is this really what I want to do with my life? And maybe some people never come to that, crossroads, but for me, it was the breaks.
Yeah. That is so real.
Does that feel how old were you when you started?
Well, I was 6 if you want to count my first professional show, but my first tour and Broadway and stuff like that was 9.
Wow.
And you know, I kind of have that feeling where it's like, you know, I was doing it just because I was having fun. Like,
Yeah,
I thought I was like so cool hanging around adults and everything like that. Like, because I just didn't relate to like other kids. I don't
mhm,
know. Like, I just wanted to be around adults all the time. And
yeah,
like, that was my play date, you
yeah,
know,
me
like
too.
going to the
I
theater.
was just telling Miranda the other day, like, you know, some of my friends were like 40 years old when I was
Right.
their age. Like, you know, it
It's
was
so
so
funny.
yeah,
I talk about it all the time with, like, new people that I meet, and I'm like they're like, "Oh, we're gonna go out," and I'm like, "Oh, that's, like, not my thing." Like, you know, like, I'm used to just, like, hanging out with a bunch of 40-year-olds in, like, their apartment or
right. And
something, and
playing
we could
celebrity or like,
right, and we could play charades and have a
basketball.
Coca-Cola, you know? You know, like, it's so like, it's
Yeah,
crazy, and I look back and I'm like, you know, in a way, like, I didn't have a childhood, like, it's
yeah,
so bizarre, and,
yeah,
like, now I still feel like I just, like, can't talk to people my own age because I just can't relate to them
I
because
know,
like, they're talking about all these, like, TikTok things and all these, like, trends, and I'm like, I don't pay attention to that stuff. Like, that's
I
so
know,
not like me, and like
yeah,
watching all the new movies and everything, and I'm just like, no, like, I don't know. It's just like
yeah,
I feel like
exactly.
I
It's
was
like
born in
we
the wrong
jumped
generation.
well, we jumped over something. Like we
Yeah,
you know, I mean, I listened all of, like, I started out like listening to heavy metal and punk and all of this stuff. And then I sort of graduated right to like Ella Fitzgerald and, you know,
right.
like, you know, it's like that. It just was I went back in
I
time.
know, and it's so funny because like everybody likes rap music nowadays, and I'm just like, I never have listened to rap music. Like growing up with like like an older generation
Right.
and musical theater, it's just like those two
Rodgers
things.
and Hammerstein.
Yeah, exactly. Like rap's not a thing in their dictionary, so I don't get that stuff. But it's hilarious, and it's so like you said, like now, like choosing to go to college and figuring out a major and everything like that. Like it was just like, what do I do with my life? And in a
Yeah.
way, it just felt like I had no other option and I was kind of pigeonholed to this industry now because like this is where my life has been. This is what my whole life's led up to and this is where I know people and this is where, you know, opportunities lie for me.
Yeah.
So it was just like you know, in a way it felt like I had no other option.
I
Uh,
know. Of
so
course we do, and you do because you're so young, and I still feel like I still do. You know, there's
yeah,
where like a friend of mine just she's a you know she's not an artist, but she went back to nurse. She went to nursing school. She's in her
sure.
30s or something like that. She went to nursing
Oh,
school,
that's incredible.
and I was like, I could be a nurse. I could be.
Yes.
You know, I'm 53. I'm like, Rachel, you're not going to go totally change your life that
Oh
far.
my gosh.
The sight of blood makes you want to faint. Other than
Right.
that,
That's so me. That's
but
hilarious.
I still fantasize other people's careers, you
Well, I
know.
mean, that's kind of what we do as actors,
Right,
you
right.
know, we just play in other
It's
people's
true. Other
things.
people's lives. I know.
Yeah, it's crazy. So, like you said, you know, you moved to New York when you were what, 19, right?
Uh-huh, 19.
So,
Yeah.
talk to me about like a move because you came by yourself, which is
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, there were some friends of mine that were down there at the time that we all kind of moved up together, but not
Okay.
around the same time. So luckily I had like a community, a small community at first, but it was really, you know, I was introduced to an agent by an agent that I had in Miami, um, and I went in and met with her, you know, my one appointment, and she was,
Yep.
hey, great. That's great. I rep you. And she shuffled through. It was like, you know, this was 1989. So there was like, she had like, you know, the big desk. There was no computer. It was just
Oh
stacks
yeah.
of paper, just like stacks of paper. She looked like a hoarder, just submissions everywhere, you
Oh
know,
my God.
pictures and resumes and stuff. And she's like, oh, wait, 1 second. And she just like, you know, kneeled over her desk and was like, oh, I have an audition right here for a Broadway show, for the lead in a Broadway show. You know,
Casual.
I was like, great, that's awesome. And I didn't end up getting it, but I not the lead, but I did understudy the lead, and I got
Right.
cast in my first Broadway show, like at 19 years old, my first audition. I mean, they made me audition. I think it was like 12 times. They had to start paying
Yep.
me for the auditions.
Yes.
But it was like first I was for the lead, then I was for the sister, then I was for the friend, then I was for the understudy, then it was for the understudy of the sister. It was like constant. There were ice skating auditions. It was totally fun.
Oh my God.
But it was like, I thought, oh, this is easy.
Right. And you obviously aced the ice skating, of course. You know us. We're just so coordinated.
I was totally cast to like there was the ice skating people on the ice rink that happened after intermission, and then there were the people like me and the other people in their 50s, 60s.
Yes.
Stood around the ice skating rink. And
of course.
That was me.
Yep. You had to just stand there and look pretty. That sounds about right. Oh my God. Hilarious. And that was Meet Me in St. Louis, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, because this is real. Like, that's how my whole first experience in this theater went. Like, my first audition, I booked it. Like, after that, like, it just kind of like spiraled. But no one tells you that there's going to be a gap in your career that, like, you know, you go without work. So, like, I mean, you did your first audition and you booked it and you're on Broadway and you think you're like in it now and this
like,
is can't be stopped. Yeah, you know.
Yeah, that's it. It's going to be like this forever.
So like, how do you, especially as like a young person, because I can kind of relate to this, like how are you able to kind of adapt and just be like, oh, okay, this is not the normal reality of the industry?
Well, it sort of hit me like a bucket of cold water because it was the reality for a while. And then, because the show ran, I think like 9 months or something like that. So almost a year of my life, I did that. And then right away, I got cast in the first national tour of Tommy Tune's Grand Hotel. And that was like a big deal. It was like a big, you know, first class tour, whatever, like the way they used to do them. And we went to Japan. I was on that tour for 18 months. But it was like, you know, then I had like a bad audition experience.
Yeah.
You know, where someone was not nice to me, you know, and even like critical to the point of like, now we would not tolerate that. You know what I mean? Like criticizing my, you know, my voice, just really aggressive. It was like it was the days where like people felt like they could do stuff like that, you know? Sure. So it was like a bad, but also too, I was so tender. And even though I'd worked so much, I was green to the world of struggle.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And so I didn't really know I didn't have a thick skin in any way. You know, I mean, you think you do, but then you just really don't. And I walked out of that audition and I moved away from New York City.
Oh my God.
I leave the business now. This sucks. You know,
wow.
Because it was sort of like somebody smacked me in the face and went, wait a minute. I didn't want this. This isn't, I never chose this. I've just been kind of like, okay, the tide is moving this, you know, the tide is going this way. And so I'm going to follow. And I sort of had that. It wasn't a slow dawning. It was like wait a second. Do I want this?
Right.
Is this what I want? Do I want? And at the time it was like pretty like just one of those things. Like, I think, you know, it's been interesting the last few years because there are a lot of people in my generation and older that are like, that's what show business is, kid. You know, you get knocked down and then you jump back up. Right. What you do about it, you know? And so because that actually was the way it was. Like, you couldn't do shit about it. Like, people could abuse you and treat you like shit, and you'd be like, and you're, you know.
And you would let them kind of.
You have to let them, otherwise you get fired.
Yeah.
Know? So, anyway, so my realization was like, oh, I don't want this. This doesn't feel good.
Yeah.
You know? And maybe there's other things out there for me. And so then the very long story, which is like years and years of like moving different places, trying on different hats, you know, like thinking I might want to be a vet and then realizing that no, I do not. Or like, you know, like thinking I might want to be a musician and doing that a little bit. But, you know, it always kept me coming back because I did love it, because I knew how to do it, because that was where I felt like proficiency. That's where I felt like grounded in my work. I don't know. Maybe you could hold on one second. I'm gonna plug in because my computer's about to die.
No worries.
Anyway, sorry. So prepared for you right
Oh my gosh. No, seriously, no worries at all. Believe it or not, this happens all the time.
But
Literally.
if I could share my pumpkin spice, literally everything from Trader Joe's, I would.
Oh my God.
Bringing you cookies and
It's crazy because I don't like coffee or anything, but like pumpkin spice is the one thing that like
you
I
like
can
it.
tolerate. Yes. I used to be so against it, but I'm all for it now, and I get the whole ruckus about it, you know?
There we go. Yeah, I feel like it used to be such a gross thing, and then you kind of get, oh God, it's weird.
You'll learn to like it for sure.
Yeah. Okay,
Um,
so where were we?
you were talking about just,
Coming back to this.
kind of, yeah, exactly, and just like it really does make you feel like home, like in a way, like because in a way that's what we know, it's just like that thing, especially like I feel like performers are introverted extroverts,
Yeah.
type thing where it's just like we feel most alive when we're like putting on a performance.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that we crave when we're out of it, even though we are like, oh, we hate it so much when we're in it.
And it is like it's so messed up because it messes with your head, like not
Yeah,
just the business, but like taking on these other personas, like and internalizing all of this stuff.
right.
Really, like if you're not careful, it'll really screw with your psyche. And
Yeah,
but I don't know, this thing that you were saying about introverted extroverts and this need to get up in front of people and connect, and I've done so much thinking about that, and I feel
yeah,
like that really it is our way of asking to be seen, and
right.
weirdly asking to be seen for who we are, but through the lens of a different person.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's bringing illumination into humanity, and perhaps a shared humanity, so that we can be, I don't know, so that people can have insight into who we are.
It's so true because so many people can relate to so many people. Like we all deal with. It's not going to be the exact like experience that happened, but in a way, like we've all struggled. We've all had mental health issues. We've all like just dealt with our own things, and we've all felt those emotions of happiness and good times and everything. So like it's amazing what happens when you go to the theater and you're just like, oh my God, like they're using something completely other than what I'm thinking, but I'm experiencing the same emotion.
Totally. And even as an actor, like getting behind, I usually play good guys, right? And I just did this run on The Good Doctor where I played,
Yeah.
the villain, like
Yeah.
the baddie who comes in and like, screws everything up. And it was really weird for me because like I recognize that the thing that you must do as an actor, of course, is to get inside people's motivations for their actions, for their behavior. You have to,
Right.
and that nobody, I don't think, I hope I'm not a bad character in life, but I don't think that evil people think, ooh, I'm evil, I'm going to do evil thing, twirl
Right.
that. I don't think, like maybe there are like certain people who do that, but I think like I think most people think that they're the hero of their own story,
Right.
and that what they're doing is necessary and good and right and justifiable.
Hmm.
And so as actors, we kind of got to get behind that and think, oh, I'm given this action to play. How would I justify that if I were this person?
Right.
And it's kind of amazing that you can justify anything, It's kind of weird,
Truly.
there's
Yep.
a way to find out that. But that even in that you can find, because we're looking at it that way, I think that we can bring like we can make complicated character like that even a little bit sympathetic.
Yeah.
Like we can find an audience will even find something to relate to in people who are not good people,
Right.
because they can see the humanity behind the decision that they're making. And I think that this like helps us grow as human beings and as a society. It brings us closer to, especially during a time of such division right now, we're able to kind of like recognize that like maybe even the bad characters, like are just kind of messed up about how they're looking at it, you know, they're
Right.
coming from a place, I don't know, maybe I forgive too much. Maybe I'm just,
I could not, literally everything you're saying. I'm just like, yeah. This is literally sounds like my thought process. Cause it's true. Like in a way, as actors, you know, we have to look at every situation from all sides.
Yeah.
And so we then bring that into like our personal lives, you know?
Yeah.
And we start to forgive and forget a lot easier.
And that's not so great.
And it's so dangerous.
Yeah, it is.
It really can come back to bite
Mhm.
you. But, you know, that's part of the course, I guess. It's what you sign up for. I don't know.
You sign up for a lot.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
Right. And you don't even realize what that
Yeah.
is until you just like, you learn the hard way in this industry.
I didn't
It's
read that
wild.
part.
Right. I missed that
I
lesson.
know.
Right. Well, I have to talk to you about Pippin because, you know, that's how we know each other. And you got to play my mom, and I had the honor of playing your son. And it's like the one thing Ben Platt and I have in common. So like that's like my claim to fame, you know.
Other than being very talented.
Oh my God. Well, thank you. But I want to talk to you about it because, you know, your performance in it was just like everyone was talking about it. You know, it was so special. The whole cast, like that show was special for so many reasons, but it was really that cast. And we were so lucky to have you, Annie Potts, Charlotte, Terrence, like all of them were our leaders. And I just want to talk to you about like what it was like because I don't know, it was my first Broadway show and like I knew nothing. I didn't even know who these people were that I was working with. Like, you know, I was so I wish I knew more about it, but like for you and your perspective, like what was it like to just be able to like play with them and kind of, you know, lead the charge in such a great revival of a show?
Well, the whole process of putting it together was fascinating and wonderful and really unique. Diane really allowed for a lot of creative input from and wanted it. You know, asked for, she pulled it out of you, the creative input from during the development of what this thing was going to be.
Right.
And so imagine she cast all of these incredibly talented people, and I say that with utter humility because I was like you. I was like, what the hell am I doing here?
Yeah, I look back.
How did I end up here?
Exactly. I was like, why? Me and all people? Take it. Oh my God.
Yeah, but it was incredible because think about, you know, you being like allowed to just have any kind of crazy idea that you wanted and to feel totally safe bringing that into the room and knowing that like half the time, almost all the time she was going to try it.
Yeah.
She'd try it, you know? And so the freedom and the permission to be creative, I think is so important. And a lot of directors don't get that. They want to, you know, they want their vision imposed on the piece. And a lot of times that's incredible and it works out really well. This collaboration ended up making something completely unique and special. And you know, it was magnificent. The people who we all worked with, like some of them are my best friends today. I see and talk to Annie Potts and Charlotte and Terry like every week, and and I see them all the time. So it's like it changed my life. Right. And I know that you guys, the best part was Charlotte and Terry's daughter, Shelby and Joe, they were your age. They were my daughter Miranda's age, and watching you guys and hearing you guys and like run all around that theater and grow up at the Music Box Theater on Broadway. It was so beautiful. It was so fantastic.
It truly was, like, literally. I always say, like, because I did like the Mary Poppins tour and I did like a Christmas story, and like the nights that I was not on, like I would dread. Like I was like, I'm not gonna make anyone feel anything tonight. I'm just gonna be sitting in my room and just like twiddling my thumbs almost. But when I was at Pippin, like being there, like I'm so glad that you were able to bring them into theater, you know, and just like be able to, you know, have someone my own age, because that was probably the only type of interaction of someone my own age I was gonna get, you know, literally. So I could never
surprised, but honestly, I was surprised to hear you say that it was tough for you to relate to kids your own age, because you were such a, like, to me, looking at it, you guys were such buddies, and it
Yeah.
was, but maybe because they were theater.
Exactly. Like they're different because they've been growing up in it, you know, and like with you, and you obviously it's just a different world, you know, it's just a different process of being raised, you know, it's just it's great, and I'm so grateful for it because I feel like more mature for it. But I don't know. There's also like some downfalls, I guess. I don't know, but I agree. I love them all. Shelby, I text Shelby all the time,
You didn't
literally.
even
Yeah,
do that.
I do. I text Shelby all the time because she was in Lincoln Center area, and I
Yeah.
was around school there, and we would always text and try to meet up, but it never
Well,
happened.
now
So.
she's a company member of the City Ballet, New York City Ballet.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Incredible. I mean, she's a star. She's so
Yeah.
talented. And yeah, exactly. It's just like another
And
reason
Miranda's an
why.
actress. Miranda's an actress.
Yes.
She's incredible. Josephine's going to college. She's the smart one.
I love it. I love it. Literally.
We always
She
knew
is
that was going to
yeah,
happen.
exactly. We all saw that one coming.
Okay.
Her and Ashton would get along really well because Ashton was way too smart for me. I was like, well, I just want to like play. I don't know. Let's play imagination. But yeah, so coming back to Pippin and everything, like it's so true. Just like that company was so amazing, and it literally, I wasn't there from the beginning, but like the second I got there, it was just like play, you know, just like you all invited me and you just invited me to play, and that obviously must have been set from Diane from the very beginning. But I like that experience literally changed my life, and then just learning from you folks every day was just an incredible experience. Seriously, I'm actually having Diane on in 2 weeks. I'm so excited. Yeah. So it's just like the things that she would do during the productions, and then like working with her in Neverland, like it was she's changed my life, you know, like in so many ways, and just taught me to be a better actor, and I'm forever grateful for that. And then of course you guys that I was able to learn from every day. But yeah, I want to talk because you were in it from the beginning. Yes.
Yeah.
Like, were you in it before like Broadway?
Oh yeah, there was a 2 or 3 week workshop that we did at the American Repertory Theater in Boston, and then we did a full production at the ART there, and then we came to Broadway with it.
So, because I didn't know anything about Pippin, I didn't know it was a show before. I now know the original story of Pippin and kind of understand it. So, like when you first got the role or like read the script or whatever, and you saw that Diane was going to make this a circus, did you have any thoughts? Like, did you like what were your thoughts of just like being a circus on Broadway, or just like what the text from Pippin is?
Well, I didn't know Pippin, and so but she asked me to audition for it because I'd done hair with her.
Right.
So the team was like, "Oh, I think they were having trouble casting Catherine, or they weren't sure what they wanted to do with it." And you know, she's the mother of a young boy, and so she's usually young. She's usually late 20s, you know.
Yeah.
Like that. And I was 41 or 2 at the time.
You didn't look a day over 20.
So, but she knew my age, you know, so it wasn't like a big surprise, but I actually turned down the audition. I was like, no, you're fucking crazy. I'm not going to go embarrass myself that way because I'm too old, you know, which I had more issues about that then than I do now.
Right.
It's like, oh my God, no, I can never do that. Oh my God. You know? And then the ask, you know, she was persistent in the ask, and that felt really stupid to turn down, you know. Diane Paulus wants you to audition for something. Like, I got to figure this out, you know. And of course, there's this little part of us that's always like, ooh, maybe I could, you know, maybe I could do it. Maybe I would be so great in it. But it was interesting for me because then I reading it, and it is a play within a play. It's a troupe that puts on this performance of Pippin tonight. And so I kind of came to the part as if this actress who was playing the part of Catherine had been doing this part for a very long time.
Yeah.
They started when she was age appropriate, perhaps.
Wow.
And then kept doing it a little too long, you know.
I
And
love that.
and then all of those issues with like needing the audience to see her subtext in order
Yeah.
for her to be seen, and all of those things. And then when she designed the production to be circus like, Catherine is not in the first act. She's not written into the show. And so
With the clowns.
yeah. So I asked, like, it was because everything was so creative and collaborative, like, especially during this workshop process, it was like, well, what can you do? What can you do?
Oh,
And
wow, really?
I'm the one who like would get dizzy when I did a cartwheel, like
Yeah.
ball, fell off the ball when I tried to walk on it.
Oh my God.
Had no upper body strength to lift myself up onto anything. And because like I think I actually am a clown at heart, I would like, make anything out of it. So I was like, what if I'm a clown? Waka waka.
Oh my God.
So that this performer is a clown in the first act, and then she comes back as Catherine. And that idea really felt fertile, and we just ran with that. And it was fantastic, because then it allowed, Catherine is usually very straight, simple. She was put there as a device to lure Pippin away from his aspirations and, into a more domestic, tranquil life, and, written that way as a role. But then suddenly here was this full-fledged person who wanted more than what she was doing anyway. And I could totally relate to that, as we've just talked about. Like, what if there's more than this life past the stage? What if getting away from this rut that I'm, hiding behind the mask, the sad clown, like, I want to be seen. I want to be my own person outside of those things.
Right.
It lent this depth and comedy and all kinds of stuff, which of course Diane was like totally there for.
Yeah, I mean, this is crazy, like, listening to you, because, like, I mean, it was a long time ago, but, like, I always thought of Catherine as the comic relief, and like, in so many ways, like, exactly, like, it was just, like, the quirkiness, like, it was just so brilliant the way that you were playing it, but the way that you're describing it now, it's like you would never guess that, like, she was the comic relief, like she was the funny one, or like the hippie, I guess, type.
She was supposed to be just the lovely, lovely person who,
it's incredible,
with her normalcy, I guess, in some way. So yeah.
Well, so I wonder, like, in it took on just like this wonderful performance that everyone would just be there and kind of feel good when Catherine was on the stage, and when you were on the stage. And like, I want to know, like, I don't know, like, comedic acting is so hard, and you have one of the best comedic timings literally ever working with you on that show. Like, I would try not to laugh literally every show. It was so bad. And so I like wonder, like, when you get laughs and applauds and all these things in like places that you didn't think, like, do you ever put like pressure on yourself as like an actress to like do it again?
Totally. Then you psych yourself out, because you're like, because once it becomes conscious, then you're like, I'm gonna wait this long to say the line, and you're like, shit, that wasn't it. You can't get the, like, it is constantly that thing. Acting is this over and over and over again. It's like letting go of that side of your brain that knows what to do, that knows the steps, the technical steps in order to do that. It's like you have to, that relax, let go, let fly thing.
Right.
And that's so real for us as human beings in our lives. Like when we're interacting with people in a party, or when we're, you cannot think like, oh my God, I do it. I still do it. I'm like, oh my God, what am I doing with my hands? I haven't moved my hands in like, 6 minutes.
Yeah.
I can't move them now. It's going to be weird, what I mean? And the same thing happens on stage. So, and it's not until you're like, oh my God, just fucking shut up and like engage in something outside of yourself,
Yeah.
So it really is like that, as as in acting as it is in life. You have to go outside of your own, messed up brain. And for me, like, who has struggled like my whole life with anxiety and all of these things, like, I will just spin right down the toilet if I let myself. So I just I always say, I use the expression like flip the switch, like whoop, like, nope, gonna, do something different here. Just take a sharp right turn. This is not working out. So with comedy, it really does feel like you've got to like hyper engage in what you're doing and why you're doing it, and understand that it's not though it feels very technical that you wait a certain number of beats, or it might look like that from the outside. It really is just like, what's the thought process that's going behind my response happening when it does, And so when you're engaged in that thought process, like, what are the beats of my thoughts?
Right.
Then it comes out at the right place.
Interesting. Yeah, for sure. And it's so true, because it's like the nights where things happen when they're like not, it doesn't normally happen, are like the times where it's like, but that's because we're just present, and we're listening and reacting, like, that's it. It's crazy. Like, it was hard to learn that, though. Like, it was hard to feel that out, because it was so much just like, no, it's just supposed to be like a scheduled thing. Right. And it's like, it doesn't have to be, and it's hard to teach your brain that.
Yeah. And what you said when you said feel it out is like, because that's what it is. And you can feel, and I know you know this because you were there and felt, especially in that show, there was so much interaction with the audience.
Yeah.
And direct address to the audience, that you feel the waves of energy. You feel the mountain of a laugh. You feel the crest of the wave of their applause or whatever.
Right.
And you know when the right time is to go. It's like surfing. Not that I'm a surfer. I got seasick to surf, which is totally true.
Oh my gosh.
You feel like that's, when this peak of the wave is happening, and you feel it, and it's like, and time to go. Like the whole earth is moving with you.
Absolutely.
And that is a feel thing. And it does take time and experience to feel that.
Right. To be able to wire your brain in such way, You talked about flipping the switch, and that kind of thought, that gave me a new thought here. And I guess we can kind of transition into the whole, how you were able to flip a switch from going to Catherine and then Heidi and Dear Evan Hansen, because I mean, they're both a mom. They're in ways they're similar, and you were doing it in a very familiar environment at the Music Box. And some people, they use that to like get that out of that other headspace that they were just doing. And you did it pretty recently after Pippin. So like, how were you able to flip that switch and kind of become Heidi Hansen?
It's like, there are similarities, and because we always use our own experiences to go through that. I thought it was really important for Heidi to, whereas Catherine was she was a dreamer. She wanted, she was the princess in her own play, and it was like she wanted to, like the longing for all of that was. And in Heidi, that thing is very, that was never an option, And I think for most people, that's not an option. It's not, or maybe it was once, and then something happens that squashes the dream of that, and reality bites you in the ass. And we walk around a lot, and we see people like this every day. And Heidi, there was a lot of similarities with Heidi, because I'd had a lot of failure. I'd had a lot of disappointment, like we all do.
Right.
But there was a time during which I was a single mom to Miranda, and I know that feeling. So that definitely I could relate to. And I think that's probably why I was hired in the first place, is that I knew, like, I had that same experience. But I think, I started walking around looking at people, and I always try to keep my eyes open when I'm building a role, and you can recognize people.
Yeah.
And I would walk down the street, and I would see someone, and I would say, oh, that's a Heidi. That's a Heidi. Oh, and it wouldn't always be a woman. It would just be like, oh, that's a Heidi. And I would try to like get behind, like, what is that I'm noticing? You know, what is that? Is it a physical attribute? Um, is it some kind of kinship, you know, that I'm recognizing inside of them? You know, what is it? You know, like, but that kind of feeling of like somebody who's just like struggling, you know, there's so much struggle and not a lot of hope for anything other than survival. There's practicality inside of that, and there's like there's survival has to happen, and so many people in this country live like this every day that like there's no like maybe all my dreams will come true. No, it's maybe we maybe we'll have enough money for the rent this month, and maybe you'll get a decent grade on that and be able to go to a college that I can afford, you know. And maybe if I try to go to night school, then I might be able to not become the career, not have the career of my dreams. No, be able to finally like get hired for the next level up so that I'll be able to have health insurance or whatever that is. You know what I mean? It's like those kinds of things are the practical considerations of most people that we run across in our lives. And so I really dug into that for Heidi, and it was a very different thing. And the feeling of needing your kid to be something and needing them to understand the same thing that you understand about life, which is that you've got to survive at all costs. I need you to survive, because if not, I'm not going to survive. You've got to survive, and we have no time for you feeling emotions right now, because you've got to study. You've got to, you've got to get a job. You've got to, you don't have time to mess around with this right now. You do these things. And I know being a parent, like that's real. We want our kids to survive more than anything. It's like, we want them to be happy. Yes. But more than that, we want them alive, you know, and we want them, and happiness has a different definition when you're in a class that doesn't, doesn't have the luxury of that aspiration.
Right.
You know what I mean? So her class was definitely her class in society was definitely a huge part of what the writers wrote and what I really dug into in that. And I think it was huge. It touched a lot of people, for that reason. We don't often see that, or we didn't at the time see that often in music.
Yeah. I think it touched every person that walked into that theater. I mean, whether it was your character or it was the show itself talking about mental health awareness, like it was like one of the first, not one of the first. Well, I guess it was one of the first, but it's like, it's such a rare thing where it's like those Next to Normals, the Dear Evan Hansons, like those are the ones that
both directed by Michael Greif.
Right. And like, those are the ones that kind of have this long life because they're willing to go to those places. And it's just like, it's incredible. Like, not only could it change your life, and it can change 30 million people who end up going to the show over the course of its run. It's just like, it's wild what art can do. And just every night, everyone, you walk into that theater and you walk out changed in so many ways, and you feel close to the strangers that sat next to you because you allowed yourself to open up and cry with them.
That's
it was but I mean, the show was just so special. And I mean, what Pasek and Paul did with the score and the writer, like everything was just so brilliant. And then of course you guys, like what you guys had to put yourselves through 8 shows a week, it's mind-blowing, like truly, like especially like as performers, people like they can appreciate it a little bit more because they understand really what is really going on, and not just the 2 hours that you're on stage. We realize that, you go home that night and you really have to figure out how to get yourself out of that mindset. Like it's mind-blowing. But you were incredible in that role, and that role earned you a Tony Award, which is insane. So well deserved. Literally so well deserved. I honestly, so well deserved for Catherine too, but it found its way to you, and I'm so excited for you, and that's such a cool thing. Do you remember anything about the Tony Awards? Like, was the night a blur because like there's just so much going on, or what do
There
you
was so
remember?
much going on, but I was so like hyper aware of everything actually.
Yeah.
Like that was, and it's almost like God forbid you were never in or ever will be in a car accident or some kind of like intense thing.
Right.
You're like, I remember every single second that car spun around, and I remember this moment, and I remember that moment. And it's like burned in.
Right.
And I was absolutely terrified once I got that nomination. I was so scared.
No.
The thing that I was the most scared of was winning. That I
Why?
had to go up on stage and make a speech as me, as like, and I mean, panic, terror, like I've never been that scared of it. Like I'm scared of sharks.
Right.
Sharks, barracudas, and I calmly paddle my way back to shore.
Are you sure you're from Florida?
It's like, ah! Yeah.
It's crazy.
But this was like terror, and everybody tells you write your speech in advance so you know what you're going to say, obviously, and you don't freak out and forget to thank the most important people in your life. And so, but every time I would sit down to try to write this speech, like I would hit a wall of terror and like have to stop, and I just couldn't. Like, dude, you're getting anxious.
Wow. Yeah. I don't like that.
So we got, I mean, all the way up until the day, I think 2 days before, my partner Benham was like, he's like, honey, you have to write the speech. And I'm like, I've written enough. It's fine. I know what I'm going to say. It's fine. I can't talk about it anymore. Don't even ask me again. Like I snapped at him. I was just like, I can't, like, just, no. And that was the only way I could make peace with it, was just like, I'll deal with it when it comes up.
Really,
and, but scared. And there's so many, events and all of that stuff. It was so much. But the day of, we had, I think a rehearsal in the morning of the performance that we were supposed to do. Then we went and we did a matinee of Dear Evan Hansen. And we had I had a team of like hair and makeup people.
Oh my God.
As soon as I walked off the stage, they started like, doing my hair and like doing the makeup, and like I washed my face, brushed out my hair. They started all over again. And I had this huge dress that Christian Siriano,
it was gorgeous.
So gorgeous. This big like Tiffany blue gown, total princess moment, like queen moment, I felt like freaking queen. But it was too big for my little tiny Broadway dressing room, so they had to hang it down on a pipe from the ceiling of the in the basement.
Oh my God.
So, I got all ready in my little robe and like went down to the costume, shop down there, and the wardrobe's office, and it was hanging from a pipe from the ceiling, taking up the entire room. And got into the dress, got folded into an SUV by like 4 people.
Oh my God.
I had to like get in, and then the dress had to be like,
you can't wrinkle it. Yeah.
And I'm leaning back like this, like, I couldn't see over the dress, driving to Radio City Music Hall. It was so absurd. And then it was also 92 degrees.
Oh God.
It was sweltering hot and humid. And when we pulled up in front of the Radio City Music Hall, and I got rolled out of the car because I was the only way. Like the dress went first, I followed, and then the dress came after me onto the red carpet, and it was just like hilarious to me.
Yeah,
I was so high with how dumb this all was. We were all just standing there sweating, waiting to be talked to and taken photographs of, and everybody's yelling at you like, Rachel, over here, Rachel.
Oh God.
Rachel, pop. And but what was interesting, like the moment that sticks out the most to me, so we got in, sat down, and then got pulled from our seats to go do the Dear Evan Hansen performance. So I got out of my gown, into a wig, into pink.
Dear God.
To the Heidi Hansen wig and scrubs.
Terrifying.
Performed, waving through a window, got off stage, had to be all remade up. Back in that giant dress, and then walked out. You could only like move during the commercial breaks, you know.
Oh, right.
So walked out, and there was a crowd of us who'd been backstage waiting to return to our seats. And Stephanie Block was there, and she had also been nominated in that category.
Yes.
And we were off house right, looking at the stage, and like, you know, this wonderful thing that was happening that we were both part of. And I put my hand in her hand, and I'll never forget like the feeling of like touching her hand, and like we just smiled at each other and just looked around, and I realized that that was the moment. That was it right there.
Yeah.
And this big like kind of peace came over me, because I was like, oh yeah, we're just here, and we're just part of this thing that is a thing, and call it what you will, and it's good and it's bad and it's weird and it's, you know, commercial and it's whatever it is. But it's not about who's the best. It's about,
Right.
you know, it's just we're here. And our award came up right after we sat down, and I just remember Patina Miller. Did you know that? Did you know that
she's
Patina
the one that
announced it?
Yes.
Sarah Bareilles. But Patina was like, and the winner is. And I remember like time slowing as I watched the mouth of Patina Miller that I know so well.
God.
I know her mouth so well. And one of the things that I used to do as Catherine was like watch her mouth, because the way she uses it to sing.
Oh, yes.
So I knew that mouth, and I watched her mouth just like go, Rachel Baker. And I was like, holy shit, this is so screwed up. This is like, what is this world? And then I thought, like, I just shook my head. I was like, this is totally nuts. And I grabbed my huge dress, and I tried really hard to just think about walking so that I didn't trip and fall flat.
Oh my God.
And Benham handed me like a little tiny piece of paper that had my notes on it, you know, and I grabbed it in my hand, but I never looked at it. It just was like, as soon as I got up there, it was like, oh, these are my friends.
Yeah, right.
The audience is friends. Why am I afraid? You know? And then I just genuinely thanked who I needed to thank, you know?
Yeah.
So happy to be there. It was really exciting.
I will literally never forget that day. Like, I fully was like watching you, and I have like the video from me videoing my TV of like your category. I know, I was just looking through my photos, and I was like, no way, I actually have it. It was just, I don't know. It's just something so special where it's just like, finally, like someone who, I mean, not like fine. I don't know how to like say this without like offending anybody, but like not saying this about anybody else, but just like finally someone is noticed the way that they should be and recognized the way that they deserve. And it was just like that. Like that was probably like the first time I ever felt that way when you won the Tony Award. Truly. Cause like I didn't get it, and then like that happened, and I was like, wow, like she, like, no one else deserved it. Like, I saw all the other performers, and nothing against their performances, but just who you are and the performance that you gave, like, finally, like, you know, like it was just so great, and I was jumping up and down and all the things. That my mom actually has a video of me videotaping you, and then my reaction. Yeah, it's a whole thing. I'll actually send it to you. It's kind of hilarious, but yeah, it's so well deserved. I'm so thrilled for you, and just so exciting for everything. And now look at you, you're a TV star, and you're doing all the things. It's just incredible. It's truly. But I one last thing I do want to ask you, just like, do you have Hanson closed on Sunday? When we're talking, of course, which is so sad. We're like, any final, like, I don't know, like words that you would say to like Dear Evan Hansen, or like looking back, like what your biggest learning moment was from that show, and just like your favorite memory. I don't know, like anything you want to like throw out there to just like happy closing of Dear Evan Hansen.
Yeah, I think, well, God, there's so many things. It's hard to distill it.
I'm sure.
But it made me realize, you know, I had so many different sons in that position, as you know, and in my career, you're one of them. You know?
Right.
But it was so beautiful to me how you're a different mother to each son that you have, you know, and I think that's true about how we relate to each other. And it allowed me as an actor to learn to be less rigid less like, oh, I should do this, I need to do that. So as an actor, it was like the fluidity of what I was allowed to do in that performance. And what it taught me as a mother, were lessons that I'll never forget. And hopefully Miranda has benefited from which is weird because Heidi's not like the greatest mom, but I think that was the thing that we wanted to, I guess. Okay. So then the thing that we wanted to impart to the audience, that I wanted to impart to the audience, was that, that as a mother, you're never going to be perfect.
Right.
To the kids out there, your mother's never going to be perfect. They are going to fuck you up in some way without meaning to, they are going to fuck you up. The love though, and the effort, must be recognized and can be forgiven for the flaws, that the flaws don't make the parent, that the love does. And maybe we're too forgiving, you and I, maybe not, but I think there's that is a truth that the show was able, at least in terms of Heidi, the show was able to impart that to parents and their kids. And to see them coming and to see the kids who were really into the show bringing their parents and then being able to have that moment of being seen and understood by the other is such a rare thing. Like, we never get that sometimes,
Right.
And I think, Eli, it was the first time that I really believed that thing that we all say, which is that, like, art can change the world. And we say that. And then there was always this little piece of me, like you, growing up in the theater, we're like, yeah, but really we do it for the applause.
Exactly. He's doing it for a good time.
It's really fun too. But yeah, I'm doing it because it's really important. And you get this kind of, self-importance about it. But aside from all of that bullshit that comes along with your ego and all of that, the confusing stuff, it's true. It was true. Like, I don't know. I cannot speak to what kind of lasting change. People say that these years later, they say that it did alter the course of their lives, this experience of seeing the show. And that's all we ever want, really, as artists. And it's real. Like, it really can happen. And that's a thing to strive for.
Yeah. And I mean, it's interesting that you say, right. And it's interesting that you say like that about Heidi, because it's like, in a way, her flaws and, the things that occurred during the show, like that's a mother's perfection. Like, that's the definition of perfection for a mother. Cause like, there is no like imperfection or anything like that. Well, there is no perfection is what I'm saying. Like, but there is like you said, the effort, that's all a kid could ask for. It's just like that effort and just wanting your kid to survive, to succeed, to do all of the things and just be healthy, like be able to live, and it maybe not the most luxurious life, but a good life, and that's like that exemplified for one of the first times that I've seen on like in a fictional story, I guess, but I guess it's not really fictional, of like, this is just life. And I feel like that's what made the show so relatable, that it was just, this is everybody's life, and that's why everyone related to it and everyone fell in love with it. So I loved the show. I loved Heidi. I loved you. I loved everything about it, and just so sad it's closed now. But Rachel, I've taken up enough of your time, but I truly appreciate everything that you've said. Oh my God, this has been a treat, because like, as we talked about, like growing up, like I just didn't understand things. I mean, I could never have these conversations as like a 11-year-old. I just don't get it. So like now, like
that would be weird if you did.
Exactly. But like now, being able to get that opportunity just means the world. So I appreciate you just like giving me that time and kind of just talking to you more about everything, about the industry, about life and everything. It was just, I really appreciate it. And I know a lot of people listening will appreciate it too. So thank you.
I'm so happy. I have a feeling you and I could go on forever.
But oh my God, we definitely could. There's a lot more to all of this for sure, but I appreciate you. And can't wait to see what's next for Rachel Bay Jones. Seriously, it's going to be amazing.